The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was the largest building ever made by any species in known space. Its black marble floors stretched for 3 kilometers, and its ceiling showed live images of spinning galaxies and distant stars. Representatives from over 200 alien species sat in their assigned sections, each platform raised according to their importance in galactic politics. Ambassador Catherine Wells walked toward the small podium reserved for junior species. Her heels clicked against the cold floor as hundreds of alien eyes watched her every step. She kept her back straight and her face calm, even though she could feel the weight of their judgment. Pressing down on her Earth had been a provisional member of the Galactic Council for 47 years. In that time, humanity had followed every rule, paid every tribute, and accepted every restriction placed upon them. Catherine had come today to change that. She carried a formal petition requesting that Earth be elevated to full membership status. Hi. Arbiter Zixathan sat on the highest platform in the chamber. His body was made of living crystal that caught the light and scattered it into cold rainbows. He had led the council for over 3,000 years, and in all that time he had seen countless species rise and fall. "The delegation from Earth may speak," he announced. His voice echoed through the massive hall like wind through a canyon. Catherine stepped up to the podium and activated her translation device. "Distinguished members of the Council, come before you on behalf of the people of Earth. For nearly 5 decades, humanity has proven its commitment to galactic civilization. We have followed every regulation. We have paid every tribute on time. We have shared our agricultural and medical advances freely with any species that asked." She paused and looked around the chamber. Most of the alien faces were unreadable, but she had learned to spot the subtle signs of boredom and dismissal. "Today, I formally request that Earth be elevated to full membership status within this council. We have met every requirement set before us. We have exceeded every metric of development. We believe the time has come for humanity to take its rightful place among the stars." For a moment, silence hung in the air. Then laughter broke out from the Velthari section. The Velthari were serpent-like, beings with scales that shifted color with their moods. Their ambassador, Sethrak, uncoiled his long body and rose to his full height of nearly 4 meters. His scales rippled with shades of mocking purple and amused gold. "The mammals presume too much," Sethrak said, his forked tongue flickering with each word. "Their little planet is barely fit to grow vegetables. Their military consists of a handful of ships running on chemical fuel like toys. What exactly have they contributed to galactic civilization that makes them worthy of standing among us?" More laughter came from other sections of the chamber. The Corvani delegation joined in, their hard outer shells clicking together in what passed for mockery among their insect-like kind. Their ambassador, a massive creature with 6 limbs and compound eyes, leaned forward in his seat. "Perhaps we should let the human explain what makes her species so special," the Corvani ambassador said. "These sessions have been boring lately. Some entertainment would be welcome." Catherine felt heat rising in her cheeks, but she kept her voice steady. "Earth has provided agricultural innovations that increased food production on 17 colony worlds. Our medical researchers developed a cure for Valaxian plague, saving millions of lives across 3 star systems. Our engineers have improved efficiency in mining operations throughout the outer sectors," Scrap said, a new voice. All heads turned toward the Eldari section. Lord Moravian was the oldest living being in the council, a member of a species that had achieved space travel when most other races were still discovering fire. His skin was paper-thin and covered with the marks of countless centuries. "You speak of scraps thrown to beggars," Lord Moravian continued. "The Eldari were building ships that could cross between stars. When your ancestors were still living in caves and hunting animals with pointed sticks, the Velthari had conquered 3 star systems before your species learned to make fire. You are children, infants, playing at civilization with toys you barely understand." The chamber erupted in sounds of agreement. Species that had spent centuries fighting each other now found something they could all agree on. Humanity was beneath them. Humanity would always be beneath them. Catherine stood at the podium and said nothing. Her datapad recorded every word, every insult, every dismissive gesture. She had expected resistance, but the depth of their contempt still surprised her. High Arbiter, Zixathon, finally raised one crystalline limb for silence. The chamber slowly quieted. The petition from Earth has been heard, he announced. It will be considered by the appropriate committees and reviewed according to standard procedures. The delegation from Earth is dismissed. No debate, no discussion, just a polite way of saying that. Humanity's request would be buried in bureaucracy and forgotten. Catherine gathered her materials and walked back down the long aisle toward the exit. She could feel their eyes on her back, could hear the whispered comments in a dozen different languages. Her translation device caught fragments of their conversation. Ambitious. Little creatures. They'll never learn their place. Perhaps another 50 years of tribute will teach them humility. Her face a mask of professional calm until she reached the doors of the chamber. Only then did she allow herself to look back at the assembly of galactic powers who had just dismissed her entire species as unworthy. They had no idea what they had just done. 12,000 light years away, in a secure facility buried beneath the Rocky Mountains, General Nathan Cole watched the live feed from the council chamber. His face showed no expression as he observed the humiliation of Earth's ambassador. Beside him sat Admiral Patricia Vasquez, commander of forces that the Galactic Council did not know existed. She had spent her entire career preparing for this moment, building something in secret that would change everything. They didn't even consider it, she said quietly. 47 years of compliance and they dismissed us in minutes. General Cole nodded slowly. They see what we wanted them to see. A weak species. A useful servant. A source of tribute and cheap labor. And now, Cole turned away from the screen and looked at the Admiral. His eyes held something cold and patient, the look of a predator who had waited a very long time for this moment. Now we stop pretending. Contact the President and the Joint Chiefs. Inform our allies in Europe and Asia. It's time to show the galaxy what humanity really is. Admiral Vasquez reached for her secure communication device. What about Ambassador Wells? Recall her immediately. Along with every human diplomat, every technical advisor, every worker we've placed in council space. All of them. Tonight, that'll raise questions. Let it. General Cole looked back at the screen, where alien delegates were already moving on to other business. Earth's petition already forgotten. By the time they start asking questions, it will be too late for the answers to matter. In the depths of the facility, behind doors that officially did not exist, lights began to flicker on in rooms that had been dark for decades. Machines that had been built in secret hummed to life. Messages encrypted in codes that no alien species had ever cracked began traveling across the stars. The galaxy had made its judgment about humanity. Now humanity would make its response. The emergency meeting took place in a chamber beneath the United Nations headquarters that most world leaders did not know existed. Presidents, prime ministers, and chancellors from every major nation sat around a circular table, their faces lit by the soft glow of holographic displays. President Marcus Hayes of the United States stood at the head of the table. He was a tall man with gray hair and steady hands. A former military officer who had spent his career preparing for moments that others hoped would never come. Thank you all for coming on such short notice, he began. What I am about to share with you is classified at the highest level. Some of it predates your governments. Some of it predates your grandparents. But after what happened at the Galactic Council yesterday, the time for secrets has ended. He pressed a button on the table, and the holographic display came to life. It showed a timeline stretching back over 70 years, to the day when humanity first made contact with alien life, when the Valkyrie scout ship landed in the Nevada desert in 2087. Our military response was immediate and overwhelming. We shot it down within minutes of its arrival. The crew survived the crash, and from their interrogation, we learned something that changed everything we thought we knew about the galaxy. The display shifted to show a map of known space, with different colors marking the territories of various alien empires. The galaxy operates on a simple principle: the strong dominate the weak. Species that appear vulnerable are exploited, taxed, and controlled. Species that appear threatening are attacked before they can become rivals. There is no middle ground. No path to peaceful coexistence through diplomacy alone. Chancellor Friedrich Brenner of the European Federation leaned forward. We have known this for decades. That is why we accepted provisional membership and paid the tributes they demanded. No. That is what you were told, President Hayes replied. That is what the public was told. But the truth is very different. He gestured, and the display changed again. This time it showed something that made several leaders gasp out loud. Ships. Thousands of ships. Warships of designs that no one in the room had ever seen. Hidden in asteroid bases, lunar installations, and deep space stations scattered across 100 light-years of space. Operation Quiet Giant has been running since 2089, President Hayes continued. 2 years after first contact, our intelligence services made a decision. We would show the galaxy exactly what it expected to see. A weak, primitive species grateful for the opportunity to serve its betters. And behind that mask, we would build something else entirely. Director Laura Simmons of the Global Intelligence Bureau took over the presentation. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and a voice that carried quiet authority. Every piece of technology we shared with the Council was decades behind our actual capabilities. The ships they have seen are museum pieces, kept running specifically to maintain the illusion. Our real fleet uses propulsion systems and weapons that the Council cannot detect, cannot track, and cannot match. Prime Minister Yuki Tanaka of Japan spoke up. Her voice was calm, but her hands gripped the edge of the table. You are telling us that for 70 years, secret program has been building a hidden military force without the knowledge of our governments? Not without knowledge, Director Simmons replied. Without full knowledge, each generation of leaders has been briefed on pieces of the program as needed. But the complete picture has been shared with very few to minimize the risk of exposure. And the tributes? Asked Premier Konstantin Volkov of Russia. The billions we have paid to the Council every year? A fraction of our true economic output. We have over 40 hidden colonies producing resources that have never been counted in any official record. The tribute is real, but it represents perhaps 3% of humanity's actual wealth. The room fell silent as the leaders processed what they were hearing. Everything they thought they knew about Earth's place in the galaxy was a lie, carefully constructed and maintained across generations. President Hayes spoke again. I understand your shock. I felt the same way when I was first briefed after taking office. But I need you to understand why this was necessary. He walked around the table, meeting each leader's eyes in turn. The Council would never have accepted us as equals through peaceful means. We could have been perfect members for 1,000 years, and they would still see us as inferior. The only thing they respect is power, and the only way to build that power was to do it in secret, where they could not interfere. And now, asked President Santos of Brazil, after the insult at the Council yesterday, you want to reveal everything? Not everything. Just enough to change their calculations. Just enough to make them understand that we are not what they believed. Admiral Patricia Vasquez stepped forward. She had been standing in the shadows, waiting for her moment. Our fleet currently numbers 2,700 combat vessels, plus support ships and supply craft. We have weapon systems that can disable Council ships without destroying them. And we have weapons that can destroy anything they have ever built. We have detailed maps of their defensive networks, their supply lines, their communication systems. We know more about their weaknesses than they know themselves. You want to go to war? Chancellor Brenner said. It was not a question. No, Admiral Vasquez replied firmly. War is not our goal. If we wanted war, we could have struck at any time in the past 30 years. What we want is recognition. What we want is respect. What we want is a seat at the table as equals, not as servants. And if they refuse. Admiral Vasquez exchanged a look with President Hayes before answering. Then we will demonstrate that refusing is not in their best interest. We will cut off the trade routes that depend on human resources. We will secure the borders of human space against any intrusion. And we will show them that the cost of treating us as enemies is far higher than the cost of treating us as friends. President Hayes returned to the head of the table. At midnight tonight, Earth will formally withdraw from every treaty we have ever signed with the Galactic Council. All of them. Trade agreements, defense pacts, resource-sharing arrangements, everything. We will give their people 72 hours to leave human space, and then we will close our borders. The economic impact will be significant, Prime Minister Tanaka observed. On both sides. Yes, but we have prepared for this. Our hidden colonies can sustain us. Our secret stockpiles can supply us. We can survive without the Council. The question is whether the Council can survive without us. Premier Volkov nodded slowly. They have become dependent on human goods without realizing it. Our food, our medicine, our technology. We have spent decades making ourselves useful, making ourselves necessary, making them rely on things that only we can provide. Now we will show them the price of that dependence. President Hayes looked around the table one final time. I am not asking for your permission. This decision has already been made. What I am asking for is your support, your unity, your commitment to seeing this through, whatever comes next. One by one, the leaders of Earth nodded their agreement. Whatever their differences, whatever their histories, they understood that this moment would define humanity's future for generations to come. The mask was coming off, and the galaxy was about to meet the real face of humanity. The message arrived at every council embassy, every trade station, and every diplomatic outpost at exactly the same moment. It was written in every known galactic language, and its meaning was perfectly clear. The United Earth Government hereby withdraws from all treaties, agreements, and obligations with the Galactic Council and its member species. This withdrawal is effective immediately. All non-human personnel must leave Earth-controlled space within 72 standard hours. Any vessels remaining after this deadline will be treated as hostile. High Arbiter Zixathon received the notification in his private chambers. His crystalline body flickered with confusion, an emotion he had not felt in centuries. He read the message 3 times, certain that there must be some mistake. Contact the human embassy, he ordered his aide. There must be an explanation for this. High Arbiter, the human embassy has been emptied. All staff departed 4 hours ago. Their communication systems have been disconnected. Before Zixathan could respond, his message system began flooding with urgent communications. Every council species seemed to be calling at once, all of them demanding answers. All of them reporting the same impossible news. The Velthari trade minister reported that human cargo ships had stopped delivering food supplies to 3 colony worlds. The contracts were simply being ignored. No one was responding to calls. The Corvani Medical Authority announced that shipments of human-developed medicine had been cut off without warning. Hospitals treating patients with diseases that only human drugs could cure were running out of supplies. The Eldari Research Council discovered that every human scientist working on joint projects had vanished overnight. Decades of collaborative work had been abandoned. With critical data files encrypted or deleted, Ambassador Sethrak pushed his way into Zixathan's chambers without waiting for permission. His scales were shifting through angry shades of red and orange. This is unacceptable, he hissed. The humans cannot simply walk away from binding agreements. They owe us tribute. They owe us resources. They owe us respect. And yet they have walked away, Zixathan replied calmly. Every human in council space is either gone or in the process of leaving. I have confirmed reports from over 200 locations, then we will force them to return. Send a fleet to their homeworld and remind them of their place in the hierarchy. Zixathan's form flickered with something that might have been unease. Before we take such action, perhaps we should consider how the humans managed to do this. Managed to do what? Send a rude message? No. Managed to position themselves so perfectly that their withdrawal causes immediate crisis across multiple star systems. Managed to make themselves essential to our economy without any of us noticing. Managed to coordinate a complete departure from council space within hours of their ambassador's humiliation. Sethrak paused, his anger cooling slightly as he considered the High Arbiter's words. You think this was planned? I think that species do not become essential to galactic trade by accident. I think that a withdrawal this smooth requires preparation that takes years, not ours. And I think that any species capable of such planning may have other surprises waiting for us. Lord Moravian of the Eldari arrived next, his ancient face twisted with concern. Despite his earlier contempt for humanity, he had lived long enough to recognize when something unexpected was happening. I have been reviewing our records on human capabilities, he said. Something is wrong. Obviously something is wrong, Sethrak snapped. Something is wrong with our records. They are too consistent. To complete, every report from the past 5 decades describes the same picture. A primitive species with limited technology and no strategic importance. But if that were true, how could they have achieved any of this? The 3 leaders looked at each other as the implications sank in. You believe they have been deceiving us, Zixathan said slowly. They believe we have been seeing only what they wanted us to see. I am now very concerned about what they have been hiding. Across the galaxy, in the space that the Council still thought of as human territory, something was stirring. Ships that had been hidden in asteroid fields began to move. Stations that had been disguised as debris revealed themselves as fully operational military bases. Communication networks that had been silent for decades came alive with encrypted signals. Admiral Patricia Vasquez stood on the bridge of the battleship Constellation, watching the deployment unfold across dozens of screens. Every ship was moving to its assigned position. Every crew executing their orders with precision that came from years of secret training. Status report. She requested her executive officer. Commander Daniel Brooks checked his displays. All fleet elements are in position. Border defense grid is coming online. Jump point denial systems are ready for activation. And the Council response? Nothing yet. Their nearest military forces are still at their normal stations. No sign of mobilization? Vasquez nodded. They're still trying to figure out what happened. By the time they decide to act, it will be too late. On Earth, General Nathan Cole was coordinating the civilian side of the operation. Thousands of human workers were returning from Council space, their secret mission complete. They had spent years building connections, making themselves useful, learning everything they could about the species that looked down on them. Now that knowledge was being compiled, analyzed, and prepared for use. The economic projections are in, reported Director Simmons, who had joined him in the command center. Council trade networks will begin failing within 2 weeks. Some species will face food shortages within a month. Several colonies are entirely dependent on human-supplied medicine that cannot be replaced. Casualties. Cole asked. Minimal if they negotiate quickly. Significant if they refuse. Cole considered this for a moment. The plan had never been to cause suffering. It had been to demonstrate leverage, to show the Council that humanity could not be ignored, and our own supplies. Our hidden colonies have been stockpiling for decades. We can maintain current population levels indefinitely without any external trade. If anything, we're better positioned for isolation than they are. Good. Now, we wait for them to understand their situation. Back in the Council chambers, that understanding was beginning to dawn. Reports were flooding in from every corner of Council space, and none of them were good. Human-designed software ran critical systems on hundreds of worlds. Human agricultural techniques supported food production that fed billions. Human medical advances kept diseases under control that would otherwise be fatal. Human engineers maintained equipment that other species had forgotten how to repair. All of it was now unavailable. All of it had been quietly, systematically, made essential over decades of patient work. They planned this from the beginning, Lord Moravian said, his voice filled with something that sounded almost like respect. From the very first day they joined the Council, they were planning for the day they would leave. But why? Sethrak demanded. What do they want? High Arbiter, Zixathon already knew the answer. He had seen it in Ambassador Wells's eyes as she walked out of the chamber, her petition denied. Her species dismissed as worthless. They want what we refuse to give them. Recognition, respect, equality. They cannot possibly think this will work. We have fleets. We have weapons. We have nothing that they cannot counter, nothing that they have not already accounted for. Look at what they have accomplished in secret. Look at how thoroughly they have prepared. Do you really believe they would have revealed themselves without being certain of the outcome? The chamber fell silent as the council faced a truth that none of them wanted to accept. They had underestimated humanity. And now they were about to discover just how badly the Velthari. Punitive fleet jumped into Earth's solar system expecting to find easy prey. Admiral Kareth commanded 40 of the most powerful warships in the Velthari Navy, vessels that had crushed rebellions and conquered worlds. Across 3 centuries of imperial expansion, he stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Vengeance, watching the tactical display as his ships emerged from faster-than-light travel. According to Council intelligence, Earth's entire defensive force consisted of 12 outdated vessels armed with primitive weapons. This would not be a battle. It would be a demonstration. Scan the system, Kareth ordered. Locate their pathetic fleet and prepare targeting solutions. His tactical officer worked the controls for several moments, then looked up with confusion on his scaled face. Admiral, I am detecting the expected vessels in orbit around the 3rd planet. But there are also contacts in the asteroid belt. Contacts? What kind of contacts? Unknown, Admiral. They were not there a moment ago. They appear to be emerging from the asteroids themselves. Kareth turned to look at the main display, and what he saw made his blood run cold. Ships. Hundreds of ships. They were appearing from what had seemed like ordinary rocks, dropping disguises that had fooled every sensor the Council possessed. And they were not small ships. They were warships, sleek and deadly, built with technology that looked nothing like what the Council believed humans could create. How many? Kareth asked, his voice barely steady. Count is still rising, Admiral. 300. 400. 500 and climbing. That's impossible. Our intelligence said our intelligence was wrong. The words hung in the air as more and more human ships appeared on the display. They moved with perfect coordination, taking up positions that encircled the Velthari fleet with mechanical precision. A communication signal came through from the human side. Kareth hesitated for a moment, then ordered it displayed on the main screen. The face that appeared belonged to a human female with short dark hair and steady eyes. She wore a military uniform covered with insignia that Kareth did not recognize, symbols of ranks and honors from a service that officially did not exist. I am Admiral Patricia Vasquez of the United Earth Navy. Your fleet has entered human space without permission. You have 2 choices. You may withdraw immediately and return to Council territory, or you may remain and receive a demonstration of human military capability. I recommend the first option. Kareth's pride warred with the evidence before his eyes. His 40 ships were now surrounded by over 800 human vessels, with more still arriving. The tactical computer was already calculating odds of survival, and the numbers were not encouraging. You expect me to run from mammals? He said, trying to keep the fear from his voice. Your trick with hidden ships does not change the fundamental reality. The Velthari have been conquering worlds since before your species learned to walk upright. Admiral Vasquez's expression did not change. Admiral, in approximately 30 seconds, we are going to disable your flagship's weapon systems. Not destroy, disable. We will do this without causing any casualties among your crew. Consider it a free demonstration of our capabilities. After that, you may make a more informed decision about whether to fight or withdraw. You're bluffing. No weapon can, the ship shuddered. Every light on the bridge flickered and then stabilized. When Kareth looked at his tactical display, he saw that every weapon system on his flagship had gone offline simultaneously. No damage, no explosions, no warning. They had simply stopped working. What did you do? He demanded. We targeted your power distribution network with a focused electromagnetic pulse. Your weapons will remain offline for approximately 6 hours. Your engines and life support are unaffected. As I said, no casualties. Kareth stared at the display, watching as his tactical officer confirmed what the human had said. The weapons were dead. The ship was defenseless. And the human fleet had not even needed to fire a conventional shot. You have 4 minutes to begin withdrawal procedures, Admiral Vasquez continued. After that, we will disable your entire fleet and tow your ships back to Council space. You will arrive home safely, but the journey will take approximately 3 months and will be extremely embarrassing. For a long moment, Karath considered his options. His pride screamed at him to fight, to prove that the Velthari were not afraid of anyone. But his training told him something else. A commander who could not win should not sacrifice his crews for nothing. All ships, reverse course, he ordered. Prepare to jump to Council space. His officers stared at him in disbelief, but they obeyed. One by one, the Velthari warships turned away from Earth and accelerated toward the jump point. As they retreated, Admiral Vasquez's final message reached them. Admiral Kareth, please inform the Council of what you witnessed today. And please make them understand that this was a demonstration of restraint. We disabled your weapons. We could have destroyed your fleet. We chose not to. I hope the Council will appreciate the significance of that choice. The Velthari fleet vanished into faster-than-light travel, carrying news that would shake the foundations of galactic civilization. 3 days later, humanity made its next move. In a single coordinated operation spanning dozens of star systems, human forces secured every jump point that connected Council space to human territory. It was a display of military logistics that should have been impossible for a species with Earth's supposed capabilities. Hi. Arbiter Zixathan received the reports in stunned silence. Each jump point was now guarded by human battle stations and patrol fleets. Any Council ship attempting to enter human space would be detected immediately and turned back or destroyed. They've built a wall, Lord Moravian said, studying the strategic maps. A wall around themselves that we cannot breach. Surely we can concentrate our forces and break through at a single point, Ambassador Sethrak suggested, though his voice lacked its usual confidence. With what forces? The Velthari punitive fleet was one of our strongest formations, and they were defeated without even fighting. Defeated without a single human shot being fired. Moravian shook his ancient head. No, Ambassador. Military action is not the answer here, Zixathan agreed. They have shown us exactly what they wanted us to see. Strength sufficient to defend themselves, but not aggression. They destroyed no ships. They killed no crews. They simply closed the door and invited us to knock politely next time. What do they want? Sethrak demanded. Surely there must be something we can offer them to restore normal relations. I believe we are about to find out. A new communication arrived, this time from Ambassador Catherine Wells. She appeared on screen wearing the full formal attire of a senior diplomat, the insignia on her uniform now, showing her true rank, rather than the junior position she had been forced to display at the Council. Distinguished members of the Council, she began. Humanity has demonstrated that we possess the capability to defend ourselves against any threat you might pose. We have also demonstrated that we have no interest in conquest or destruction. We did not seek to harm Admiral Kareth's fleet only to send it home with a message. She paused, letting her words sink in. That message is simple. The era of human submission is over. We will no longer pay tribute to species that mock us. We will no longer accept restrictions that limit our growth. We will no longer pretend to be less than we are. What we want is equally simple. Recognition as equals. A seat on the Council with full voting rights. An end to the policies that treated us as second-class members of galactic civilization. We are prepared to negotiate new treaties based on mutual respect and mutual benefit. We are prepared to resume trade and cultural exchange with any species that accepts these terms. But we will not return to the way things were. That path is closed forever. The transmission ended, leaving the Council to contemplate their options. Zixathan looked at his fellow leaders. We have a choice to make. We can accept their terms and adapt to a galaxy where humans stand among us as equals. Or we can refuse and watch our economies collapse while human space prospers behind walls we cannot breach. This is humiliating, Sethrak muttered. Yes, Lord Moravian agreed. But humiliation that we survive is preferable to destruction that we do not. The humans have been merciful. They have given us a way to end this without losing everything. I suggest we take it. The vote was not unanimous, but it did not need to be. The message would be sent. Negotiations would begin, and the galaxy would never look at humanity the same way again. The negotiations lasted 6 months. They took place on a space station in neutral territory, a facility that humans had secretly built decades ago for exactly this purpose. Every council species sent their best diplomats, their most experienced negotiators. Their sharpest minds, they faced a human delegation that matched them point for point. Ambassador Catherine Wells led the human team with a confidence that the council representatives found unsettling. She knew their trading patterns, their political divisions, their historical grievances, their secret agreements. Information that should have taken centuries to gather had somehow found its way into human hands. "You've been watching us," Ambassador Sethrak said during one of the breaks between sessions. His tone was not accusatory. It was almost admiring. "All those years when we thought you were serving us, you were studying us." Catherine smiled politely. "The council taught us an important lesson on our first day as provisional members. You told us that knowledge is power, and that those who appear harmless are often underestimated. We simply paid attention. All your people who worked in our laboratories, our hospitals, our government offices. They performed their duties faithfully. They also served and reported. It is not our fault that the council never considered the possibility that servants might have secrets of their own. The negotiations were difficult but not hostile. Both sides understood that the alternative to agreement was economic collapse for the council and permanent isolation for humanity. Neither outcome served anyone's interests. The final document, which came to be known as the Earth Accords, ran to over 3,000 pages. It established humanity as a full member of the galactic community with all associated rights and privileges. It created new standards for admitting developing species that prohibited the exploitation and contempt that marked humanity's provisional membership. It set up trade agreements, defense arrangements, and cultural exchange programs based on principles of mutual respect. On the day of the signing ceremony, the Great Hall of the Galactic Council looked very different than it had 6 months earlier. The platform reserved for junior species had been removed. In its place stood a section equal in height and prominence to any other. Bearing the flag of the United Earth Government, President Marcus Hayes walked to the signing table with the calm dignity of a man who had spent his career preparing for this moment. Representatives of every council species watched as he reviewed the final document, then picked up the ceremonial pen. Before signing, he looked up at the assembled delegates. "What we signed today is more than a treaty," he said. "It is an acknowledgement of a truth that should never have needed proving. No species is inherently superior to any other. No civilization has the right to exploit those who came to the stars later than themselves. Respect must be earned, but it must also be given freely to those who earn it." He signed his name, then stepped back to allow the council representatives to add their own signatures. Hi. Arbiter Zixathon was the last to approach the table. His crystalline form flickered with complex emotions as he looked at the human president. "You could have demanded more," Zixathon said quietly. "Your military advantage would have allowed you to claim tribute, territory, perhaps even dominion over lesser species." President Hayes shook his head. "That was never our goal. We wanted recognition, not domination. We wanted a seat at the table, not ownership of the table itself. And yet you have changed everything. The balance of power that existed for thousands of years has been completely altered. Balance of power is just another way of saying that the strong dominate the weak. What existed before was not balance. It was hierarchy disguised as order. We have simply created space for something more fair." Zixathon signed the document, then rose to face the assembly. "Let the record show that the Earth Accords are now in effect. The United Earth Government is hereby recognized as a full and equal member of the Galactic Council. May this day mark the beginning of a new era of cooperation between our peoples." The ceremony concluded with formal speeches and diplomatic courtesies, but the real work had already been done. The galaxy had been reshaped by the actions of a species that everyone had dismissed as unimportant. Later that evening, Ambassador Catherine Wells stood on the observation deck of the human delegation ship. She watched the stars of the galaxy spread out before her. Countless points of light representing worlds now recognized humanity's right to stand among them. Her secure communication device buzzed with an incoming call. General Nathan Cole's voice came through, clear despite the vast distances involved. "Congratulations, Ambassador. The President is very pleased with the outcome." "Thank you, General, though I suspect your contribution was more significant than mine." Cole chuckled. "Different battlefields, same war. Speaking of which, what's the Council's current assessment of our capabilities?" Catherine considered the question. "They believe they now understand what we can do. They've seen our fleet, our weapons, our strategic positioning. They think the mystery is solved." "Good. Let them think that. Hidden colonies. The reserve forces. The research programs. Still hidden. Still ready. We showed them enough to earn respect. Not enough to eliminate caution. They know we're dangerous. They don't need to know exactly how dangerous." Catherine nodded, though Cole could not see it. "Some lessons shouldn't be forgotten." "No, they shouldn't. The galaxy has been reminded that underestimating humanity is a mistake, but they should never become so comfortable that they stop respecting us. A certain level of mystery serves our interests." The call ended, and Catherine remained on the observation deck, thinking about the long road that had brought them to this point. 70 years of pretending to be weak, decades of accepting insults and paying tributes, generations of secret work, building and planning and waiting for the right moment, and now humanity stood where it belonged, recognized by all as a power to be respected. But the Council didn't know everything. They didn't know about the colonies on the far side of the galaxy, where human settlements had grown to populations in the hundreds of millions. They didn't know about the research facilities, where human scientists were developing technologies that made their current advantages look primitive. They didn't know about the contingency plans, the backup strategies, the preparations for scenarios that might never happen but could not be ignored. The mask had slipped, but a new mask had taken its place. The galaxy saw a strong humanity, a capable humanity, a humanity worthy of respect. What they did not see was the full extent of what humanity had become, and that was exactly how it should be. Catherine turned away from the stars and walked back toward the main section of the ship. There was work to be done, new relationships to build, new challenges to face. The era of hiding was over. But the era of human growth was just beginning. The Galactic Council had learned the cost of underestimating Earth, but perhaps more importantly, they had learned something that would shape galactic politics for generations to come. Humanity's greatest strength had never been warships or weapons or technology. It was patience. The patient willingness to endure, to prepare, to wait for exactly the right moment. And in a galaxy that measured power and conquered worlds in military might, that patience had proven to be the most powerful weapon of all. The stars waited, full of possibilities, full of challenges, full of futures yet to be written, and humanity was finally ready to claim them.